There's something strange about the end of a year and the beginning of a new one. Strange. Not cringy, not dramatic, just heavy. The calendar changes, but most of us carry the same weight across the divide. Same memories, same regrets, same quiet sense that something didn't quite work this year. In every December, we're told, explicitly or implicitly, that this is the moment to feel all of that, to measure ourselves, to audit our failures, to stare backward long enough to scare ourselves into doing better. But what if that instinct is already working against us? Most people think the new year is about time, but it's not. It's about permission. People think they need guilt to grow. They don't usually say it that way, but they live like it's true. They believe guilt is their engine. Shame is their fuel. Pressure is proof that they care. So every January becomes a ritual of self-indictment. I should have done more. I should be further along. I should be better by now. But let me say this plainly. Condemnation doesn't make us holy. It makes us tired. And tired people don't transform well. This film is not here to motivate you. It's here to interrupt something. Because if guilt actually produced life, we would all be flourishing by now. There's a verse almost everyone knows. It gets quoted at stadiums, printed on signs, reduced down to a slogan. But familiarity has made us careless with it. For God so loved the world. We usually hear that line as an offer for later, a future promise, a heaven after death arrangement, an exchange, belief for later access. But that reading has consequences. It trains us to postpone life. One day I'll really live. One day I'll be free. One day I'll stop feeling like this. And until then, we survive on guilt. But that is not how life works in John's gospel. In John, life doesn't mean mere survival. It doesn't mean biological existence. It doesn't mean escape after death. It means a quality of life, a God-participating life, a way of being alive that starts now. Eternal life is not a duration. It's a condition, a state of being, not later life. Different life. Which means this: if eternal life only begins after death, then John 3:16 is merely a comfort verse. But if eternal life begins now, then John 3 is a confrontation. Because it means many of us are alive, but not yet living. For God so loved the world, for God so loved. Notice the order. Love is not God's reaction to improvement. Love is not God's response to effort. Love is not God's reward for belief. Love is the starting point. Life begins in being loved, not in being corrected. Identity precedes behavior. Belonging precedes performance. This dismantles a lie most of us were trained on, that we must become acceptable before we're allowed to live freely. But love doesn't wait for permission. Love initiates. You don't earn life in order to live well. You receive life, and living well flows from that gift. Whoever believes, we've turned belief into mental assent, a checked box, a theological posture, an intellectual position. But belief in John is not about holding the right thought. It's about placing your life somewhere. It's about shifting your direction, choosing what governs you. Belief is not, I agree this is true. Belief is, by faith, I'm placing my life here. Which means belief is not passive, it's alignment. And guilt is a terrible alignment tool. Guilt keeps the self trapped in self-surveillance, always monitoring, always measuring, always apologizing for existing. But belief frees self to live, to create, to risk, to love without calculating the cost. Shall not perish. We hear that word and think only of death. But perishing is already happening all around us. It looks like disconnection, loss of purpose, living under constant fear, shrinking imagination, a life narrowed by accusation. Condemnation accelerates perishing now. It makes people smaller, and small lives cannot carry dominion. You cannot steward a future while constantly prosecuting your past. For God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world. This verse changes everything. And that's why we skip it. Because condemnation feels useful. We think it keeps us sharp, keeps us serious, keeps us from drifting. But hear this clearly. Condemnation is not God's strategy. Not externally, not internally, not spiritually. That posture, the voice that says, you are the problem, did not come from God. And if condemnation didn't come from God, why are we still using it on ourselves? Guilt is backward looking. It feeds on memory, on regret, on what can't be undone. Eternal life is present facing. It animates now, moves forward, breathes possibility into the moment. Which means guilt is the wrong starting point for a new year. You cannot build a future by staring at regret. You don't need a new year. You need a new way of living without guilt. Not new year, new me, but new life already mine. That the world might be saved. Saved doesn't mean endlessly corrected. It does not mean spiritually optimized. It does not mean living under constant improvement cycles. Saved means restored, returned to wholeness, released from self-rejection, re-entered into life. Salvation restores you to creative authority. It hands your life back to you without accusation attached. You are no longer ruled by last year. Not its failures, not its losses, not its unfinished stories. This film is not telling you merely to try harder. It is telling you something more dangerous. You are allowed to live without proving it, without earning it, without punishing yourself into compliance. You don't need guilt to grow. You don't need condemnation to change. You need life. And life has already been given. So here we are, at the turning of another year. And maybe the question isn't, what do you need to fix? But what would your life look like if condemnation were no longer your engine? What would you create? Who could you impact? How lightly could you walk if guilt no longer had a vote? This film doesn't end with answers, only an invitation to live now, to enter 2026, not driven by regret, but animated by life. Because eternal life was never later. It was always now.